Hello and welcome. We're just going to give everyone 2 minutes to come into the webinar. So welcome and get comfortable. Okay, I think we can get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual session, Creative Approaches to Hiring and Retaining Immigrant Employees. My name is Patricia Hunter. I am the manager for the St. Thomas-Elgin Local Immigration Partnership and a member of the Southwestern Ontario Local Immigration Partnerships, where we've come together to plan some of these events. So this event, or this session, is planned due to the funds from Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, and from partnership with WILL Immploy and the local immigration partnerships from Southwestern Ontario, including Guelph-Wellington, Chatham-Kent, Huron County, London-Middlesex, St. Thomas-Elgin, Hamilton, and as well as the Waterloo Region Immigration Partnership and the Workforce Windsor-Essex. Just a reminder that we are recording this session. So if you take your notes but miss some information, they will be available for you to view at a later date. We are grateful today to have 3 speakers, and they will share perspectives about creative solutions they have themselves implemented to better hire and retain immigrant talent in your workplace. We have pulled some audience questions from the registration, and we will get to those later. There will be also an opportunity for people to ask questions through the Q&A feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen. But before we begin, we're going to have Gamze Sayan from the employer, or who is an employer advisor, from WILL Immploy, to lead us in a land acknowledgement.
Thanks, Patricia. Hello, everyone. My name is Gamze Sayan. I'm the employer advisor for the newcomer talent retention program at WILL Immploy. I would like to offer today's land acknowledgement before we begin. This land continues to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors to our society. As settlers, we recognize and acknowledge that WILL Employment Solutions is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape-Wuk, and Audouin peoples, now known as London. The 3 indigenous nations that are our closest neighbors are the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation, who all continue to live as sovereign nations with individual and unique languages, cultures, and customs. We recognize the land as an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose traditional territory we reside on, and to honor the indigenous people who have been living and working on the land we now call home for more than 10,000 years. We respect the long-standing relationships that indigenous nations have to this land, as they are the original caretakers. Their ways of life and knowing, from advanced social and economic systems to structures of law and democracy and deeply rooted traditional knowledge, existed for millennia before Europeans ever saw the shores of North America. We also acknowledge historical and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we accept responsibility as a publicly funded organization serving newcomers that we have an important role to play in educating ourselves and the clients we serve, correcting miseducation, and renewing respectful relationships with indigenous communities throughout our region.
Thanks, Gamze. I'm going to now take the opportunity to introduce our three specialists, or our subject matter experts, and then we're going to get into the question session. So the first speaker I would like to speak about is Jen Chappell. She's the medical affairs specialist at Chatham-Kent Health Alliance. Jen is a seasoned professional with a Bachelor of Management and Organization Studies from the University of Western Ontario. With over a decade of experience in various HR roles within Chatham-Kent manufacturing sector and Chatham-Kent Health Alliance, for the past 6 years, Jen has dedicated her expertise to CKHA as a medical affairs specialist, focusing on the recruitment and retention of their esteemed physicians. Jen's passion extends beyond her career she actively contributes to her community. She is a soccer coach at Chatham Youth Soccer Association, an advocacy committee member of the Canadian Society of Physician Recruitment, and a board member for Kids Stuff Daycare. She loves living, working, and raising 2 children in Chatham. I don't know if you want to wave and let everyone know who you are, Jen. Perfect. Our next speaker is Trish Gill, a senior HR consultant and career coach at Ladder HR Solutions. Trish's knowledge and experience in the field of HR is reinforced by intuition and emotional intelligence, allowing her to work with anyone and bring them to successful goal attainment, both personally and professionally. With 13 years of experience focusing on employee and manager coaching, in addition to recruitment, she has steered many people in the direction of the goals they wish to achieve. Trish also has a background in life and career coaching, which essentially led to the same outcome, goal attainment. Her passion is people and to help others reach their goals successfully. Welcome, Trish. Did you want to give a wave? Perfect. And our final speaker is Catherine Englander, the founder and HR consultant at Home Resource Partners for Business, HRP4B. Catherine is a well-respected HR professional, a part-time instructor at Fanshawe College, and a leadership coach. She's the founder of HRP4B, which is an award-winning human resource consulting and training firm. She holds a BA in French and psychology, a certificate in human resources management, an HR business partner certificate, is a certified life coach, and a personality dimensions facilitator. Her career spans over 30 years of HR experience in a variety of roles. She is a member of the Human Resource Professional Association, and she proudly serves as the chair of the Better Business Bureau of Western Ontario and as a director on the London-Middlesex Oxford Workforce Planning and Development Board. Catherine spends her spare time paddling with Robust, a London-based dragon boating team for breast cancer survivors. She enjoys life in Port Stanley with her spouse, Brad, and miniature rescue poodle, Piper. Brad and Catherine have 5 adult children. So welcome, Catherine, and welcome all the other speakers. Thanks for giving that wave. We're going to get into our first questions, which will allow everyone to introduce themselves and what they do, and then we'll get into some of the questions we received. And I do invite anyone, if you have questions that you can think of as we're speaking, to click on the Q&A chat feature and type them in, and we'll get to them after the first questions happen. So my first question that will be for all the panelists is, can you tell the audience a bit about your organization, your role, and the kind of roles you hire for? And we'll start with Jen.
Hey everybody, so I'm Jen Chappell. I am a medical affairs specialist at the Chatham-Kent Health Alliance. My role is basically to provide human resources services to hospital physicians. CKHA is a 200-bed community hospital with a catchment area of about 110,000 people. So my team recruits physicians of all specialties for the hospital. And I also manage the medical education program, which sees over 100 medical students and residents spending time at CKHA every year. So just a note, I'm not currently responsible for any family physician recruitment for the community. It's just for CKHA Hospital. And my goal for today will be just to provide as many sort of take-home specific actionable tips to help with your recruitment efforts. So thanks for having me.
Krish? Oh, you have to unmute.
You think by now I'd remember that.
I would say thank you for not making me be the first person who forgot.
So thank you for having me. My name's Trish Gill and I'm with Ladder HR Solutions. Ladder HR Solutions is a full service human resources firm providing clients of all sizes HR support, including recruiting. I've been with them for the last 5 years, and they also have a small business, a sister company that provides payroll and bookkeeping and administrative support, as we were starting to see clients requiring that as well. Yeah, so my role at Ladder HR Solutions is I'm the senior HR consultant there. So I provide clients with HR support and the full gamut of HR solutions, including recruiting. We do it for our clients are wide based. It could be construction, it could be finance, it could be software development, it could be manufacturing. It's broad based, which is great because it gives us a lot of experience with all these different organizations. So yeah, that's kind of the background.
Catherine?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thanks a lot for allowing me and inviting me to be part of this really important conversation that is so timely here in Southwestern Ontario. We are also a full service HR firm. We're called HRP4B, which stands for Human Resources Partners for Business, because we partner with all types of businesses to provide HR services, including we also have a registered social worker on our team because mental health is an important topic that's on everybody's mind right now. I started our company actually about 9 years ago, and I recently sold it, but I continue to work and I will continue to work for HRP4B. I personally provide training and team building to all levels of employees, executive coaching and mentorship to leaders. As a full service HR firm, we offer onboarding, training, recruiting, performance management, employee engagement, compensation surveys, and anything to support companies and nonprofits. Our goal is to improve culture at all levels, especially by providing mentoring and training to leaders. There are some just a quick other factors that set us apart from other HR firms, such as Peninsula and HR Downloads. We customize everything we do, and we provide on-site services as needed. Again, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this conversation.
Thank you, everyone. So our next question, which again will be for everyone, is what challenges have you experienced or seen in hiring and retaining talent in your organization or industry? What creative approaches have you implemented to overcome these challenges, and what were the results? So we'll start with Jen.
So unfortunately, there's a long list of challenges that come with physician recruitment. You just have to turn on the news and you see it. So it's real for sure. There's a short supply of candidates to start, and then an even shorter supply of those who want to work in a smaller community like Chatham-Kent. There's an insane level of government red tape with getting immigrant physicians licensed in Ontario. And then once they're licensed, there's additionally a very lengthy process to get them a work permit here. And the big city pull, I mean, it's strong. So even if they come, before long, a lot of times the GTA comes calling and they move away. So I sort of just made a list of 4 creative approaches, if you want to call it that, for recruiting. So we'll just pop through those now. So I created a social media a social media account, CKHA Docs. It's one of the first medical affairs departments to run a social media account in Canada. So here's my little plug. We're on Instagram and Facebook, so please like us and share our content. The idea is that we want as many people to see it as possible, because everybody knows physicians or med students or residents. So it's at CKHA Docs. I created this a couple years ago, basically just to show who we really are and what working here is like. So, not the communication department's, scrub down PR acceptable version of who we are, the real us. It's candid, it's relatable. These accounts were mentioned as an industry leader at this year's Casper conference in Toronto, which I was really grateful for. And it allows me to easily reach med students, residents, and doctors around the world to show them why they should work for us, and it's free. So mine is obviously physician focused, but you could easily replicate this for any business. Number 2, connect with educational institutions and associations. So there's no point in trying to connect with people who are the types of folks that you're looking to recruit. Ask these institutions, they already know these people. So, the educational institutions, they already know their students. Associations, all of those professionals belong to that association already. So ask them to share your job postings on their posting boards, utilizing their mailing lists. Ask them to reach out to new grads or current students who are rock stars and put the job posting in front of them. Again, they know the people you're trying to recruit already, so sort of elicit their help to make those connections. I also network with physician recruiters across Canada via a WhatsApp group that we created. And that's helpful because there's examples where, someone out east might come in contact with a candidate who that candidate totally does not want to work out east for whatever reason, family or otherwise, they want to come to Ontario. So instead of that recruiter just saying, okay, well, we're out east, so, sending them on their way, where they're almost certainly going to land in the GTA because foreign doctors, that's what they know, right? They know the name Toronto and Ontario, and that's, that little hour around the city of Toronto is kind of what they know. So don't just send them on their way. Have that person from out east connect that candidate with someone like Chatham. So, you want to go Ontario, have you ever heard of Chatham? Which they will not have heard of Chatham. So it's a perfect way of introducing us. So again, that's physician specific, but find your industry partners across the province or country and work together to place candidates in each other's companies. If a candidate doesn't work for you for some reason, that doesn't mean they won't work for someone else. So kind of work together to build those partnerships. And then the last one is LinkedIn. So I just started really using this year. It's free. You can use the search within the LinkedIn program to search for certain. So I can look up medical student or resident or physician or OBGYN, whatever you're looking for, engineer, or, if it's a specific degree, you can search for those things and it'll come up with suggested contacts. And then you can just hit connect, request to connect. And if they accept, it's free to direct message with them. You don't have to pay for the LinkedIn to do that as long as they accept your connection request. And then, so I just share information that they'll probably be interested in. And then, I inbox them our job posting. So that way they can't not see it. You put it in front of them and you do it for free. So I just started doing that earlier this year and I have almost 2,000 connections already, which are almost completely medical students, residents, and physicians. So, just a thought, if you're looking for an engineer or a plumber or whatever, you can search there and it might be successful.
Thank you so much. Next up, Trish, make sure you unmute. You're unmuted.
Right, I always forget that. It's getting that. Okay, so what challenges have we experienced? There's a couple. I think working with clients, there's some very specific needs and wants that they have for the candidate, whether it's experience, education, certifications, that type of thing. Some of it has to be there, but some of it is a nice to have. And then so it's creating the pipelines of this talent. Some of it is niche talent, so just trying to find them on behalf of the client. The other challenge we're seeing is it's more of a boomerang trend, and I think it has to do with today's society in terms of trying to stay above poverty level in terms of the salaries that they're making. It's getting to be really expensive to live, so everybody, before your total compensation program, including benefits and bonuses and, employee perks were a huge part of hiring, but it's gone back to the base because everybody needs to pay their bills, right? And so to make enough money to do that is become a real focus. And so the boomerang effect is where, somebody leaves an employee or employer and then goes with another employer. And then the first employer is wooing them back with more money, better benefits. And so they go back again. And so, it's still left over from COVID. I think all the inflation and, the rising salaries, the rising demand for salaries is always a challenge. One of the things that we've really encouraged clients to do is to really examine your job posting and what are some of the things that you can train in-house. The more training in-house that you can provide means the more candidates that would be applicable to your posting and to the position. So if you have that flexibility, creating in-house training programs to get the certifications that you want your individuals to have will increase the people eligible for that position. And also you're getting people who are interested in that additional education, professional development, and therefore are willing to take maybe a lesser salary if that's what you can afford. The other thing that we've seen is you definitely have to have your salary band on your posting. You may not get interest. We've seen the differences between not having the wage posted on your postings and having it posted. So that's a big one as well. And then, always keeping an eye on, the market, doing market analysis and compensation and looking at your programs and making sure that you're competitive in that way. I think those are some of the biggest things that you have to take in consideration.
Thank you, Trish. I will put a little plug. Not only do you need to think of in-house training, but also see what community partners you can bring to the table. We have really robust literacy and employment partners across all of Southwestern Ontario, and they also can help you meet the needs of your staff. Sorry to interject, but Catherine,
perfect.
You're up next.
So we see challenges on both sides of the recruitment scenario. And I'm referencing a recent article in the Globe and Mail about recruitment horror stories from candidates, including that employers don't get back to candidates even after an interview. And this is a situation where an employer can tarnish their brand image so easily by poor communication. One approach we suggest is to carefully manage the recruitment process so that the candidate is always getting a favorable opinion of the employer right through the process. If an employer is overwhelmed and can't manage the recruitment process, a company like ours can manage the process at any stage. On the other side, we see candidates who ghost employers in interviews, and even after starting a job, they simply don't show up. Devastating to an employer. So what we recommend is, in response to this, contacting the employee quickly and asking if there are ways the employer can support the new employee. We ask if there was an event in the workplace that caused the employee to ghost or leave, and we try to correct the issue. So again, we are creating the best culture possible. When recruiting, our goal is always to match the best candidate to the best role for that person. And we communicate that they're the ideal candidate, and we look forward to them joining the team. Specific challenges of hiring and retaining immigrant talent include lack of direct experience in a specific industry or position, such as a specialist role. However, we encourage employers to value transferable skills and look to leverage this. Difficulty in getting prior work and school credentials recognized, and the length of time it takes to obtain equivalency, right? A candidate can be lost, unfortunately. The process of completing a labor market impact assessment can oftentimes be very time-consuming when businesses are looking to fill positions quickly. And of course, as mentioned by everybody, I think the cost of living in Ontario is a barrier for everybody, especially immigrants. HRP4B proudly worked with Perth County and Invest Stratford on a project called Workforce Attraction and Retention Employer Toolkit. WARET, you can look it up. It's a comprehensive online resource focused on helping Ontario businesses implement programming that facilitates the attraction and retention of much needed workers, including immigrants, providing them access to creative solutions to the labor shortage. Through the research phase of this project, we learned that there are a number of businesses experiencing labor shortages in general, which we already knew. And some of those solutions included partnering with other companies in the same industry to bridge gaps in work by sharing temporary foreign workers, providing housing to their employees and employees' families, Titan trailers, housing initiatives. If you'd like to find out more about that, you can look it up or contact us. Providing in-house language training, again, Titan trailers and Danby appliances. Those are just some of the solutions.
Great, thank you so much. So our next question, that is again for everyone, is, in your opinion, what are the key factors to attract and retain talent? So again, we'll just start right at the top. Jen, you can go first.
So for me, it's all about being authentic and truthful about who your company is and providing that realistic job preview to that candidate. You want to attract the right people from the beginning who fit with your team and your company. Otherwise, your recruitment efforts will just be wasted if they leave shortly after being hired. So to me, just being truthful and authentic allows that connection to be the right connection from the beginning. And also just put yourself out there in any way possible to ensure that potential candidates see you and know who you are. So just as an example, when I worked at a local tool and die company before working at CKHA, so about a decade ago, we knew that guys were driving up and down the highway from Wallaceburg to Windsor for work. And they were literally like driving past our door to go to Windsor for work. So it wasn't my idea. I can't take credit for it, but one of our managers said, why don't we put billboards up on the side of the highways that these guys travel saying, our company's hiring. And it was actually successful. So, whatever creative way you can come up with to put yourself out there and let people know that you even exist, because sometimes they, depending on the size of your organization, they literally might not know you exist. So getting your name out there in a positive way as much as possible is what I would recommend.
Trish?
You know what, and Jen made a really good comment, just getting out there and where the different, your target audience is, getting out in front of them. Sometimes you have, it takes time. You have to go onto social media and spend your time there. That's our reality today is that your recruiters need to have that time to go and search out and create the pipeline of the potential candidates that are out there through employer partners, through agencies. There's all kinds of different job boards that are targeting different audiences. So making sure you're looking at that. From a retention perspective, what I'm really seeing with some of the clients that I'm working with is getting the new hire acclimatized to the culture of the organization, as quickly as possible. So making sure that there's someone to greet them on the first day, and there's someone to work with them beside them, like a buddy system, throughout the first month. And this is not your trainer. This is a person who is working beside them and is saying, hey, let's go. It's break time. Let's go. This is kind of what we typically do. Here's lunchtime. Here's what we typically do. If employees get together after work, inviting them out. Just really making them feel comfortable. And then it's like the culture of the organization is not necessarily set out in the policies and programs. I mean, it's the employees that you want to get them acclimatized, and then they feel comfortable asking questions. I found that a lot of newcomers are they're not comfortable asking questions because they don't want to look bad. They're already in a new situation that they're not familiar with, so they don't want to heighten any opinion that perhaps they don't know what they're doing. So there's a tendency of them not asking questions where individuals who have grown up in Ontario would typically do so without thought. So it's the buddy system is really seen to help the retention. So get those individuals through probation and moving on. It's that people connection, right, that people stay for. And then offering them training and development. That's another one. That's a huge, people feel the job security, and yet, they feel they're more marketable, but they stay with the organization because they feel that they're supporting them and being more marketable, which is kind of a little irony there.
Thank you. Catherine?
So to attract and retain talent, we think that brand image is really important. People look on social media, and the image you have as an employer on social media matters. Does your company culture show an image where you would want to work? Do people talk about your leaders in a negative way? Word gets out by word of mouth and social media, as we know. Improving culture goes a long way in attracting and retaining talent, ensuring that leaders are positive, inspiring, and holding employees accountable properly goes a long way in building culture. Specifically, when it comes to retaining talent, we recommend consideration for housing, providing time off to visit families, support with bringing families over to work, having clear policies that outline company values and expectations when it comes to diversity and inclusion, harassment, discrimination, racism from coworkers or customers. And again, holding people accountable. It's not only the law, it needs to be part of your culture. Honoring various religious holidays and cultural events, providing diversity training to managers and supervisors to help them understand the importance of and embracing and supporting differences amongst people. Providing newcomers with resources such as training in language skills through bridging programs, creating a mentorship program with a training buddy or somebody to be a friend at work, and supporting with the process of becoming a permanent resident if that's the route that they're interested in.
Thank you so much. And everything that I'm hearing, I'm reminded of a quote that I really like. It says, don't use your meaning to make sense of someone else's reality. And often we assume that people are doing things because they're just doing it on purpose, but sometimes they're making different decisions. Same thing with building an awareness of your industry. We are so ingrained in what we do that we think everyone understands everything, but oftentimes there's a lot more education that we need out there to help others connect and feel like they want to connect. So the last question we have before we'll get to the ones submitted are, what advice would you give to an employer facing difficulties in recruitment and retention? Where should they start?
Okay, so I think you should start by not worrying, because we are literally all struggling. So it's not you, it's everyone. We're all struggling. So just take a deep breath and, remain calm and be positive. Provided your current employees are generally happy working with you, they can be your best advocates. One, they've already committed to you and they presumably love working where they are. And they also don't want bad coworkers to be recruited. So try to get your own employees to help spread the word about whatever vacancies you have. You might even, if you're able to, consider a bonus to anyone who recruits someone. The old saying, teamwork makes the dream work. So you can't do it alone. You need a team to be able to bring in all the talent that you need. And make sure you do whatever it takes to retain your current talent, because that'll help dry up your recruitment issues. If it's a revolving door and you're let's just say you're doing a great job recruiting, you're bringing a bunch of people, but then you don't keep them happy, you're always going to have a recruitment concern or a need for recruitment. So make sure that retaining your current awesome, talented employees is as important, if not more important, than your recruitment.
Great. Trish?
I definitely agree with that, Jen. When I looked at this question, I thought, you know what, as a career coach, I'm working with candidates who are looking for jobs. And it's just fascinating how there are so many individuals who are looking for jobs and not finding them, and then the employers looking for candidates and not finding them. And then how do we match them up? So some of the advice that I give candidates who are looking for positions is to try and connect with employers on LinkedIn and ask for an informational interview. The irony is that the employers who are looking for candidates, or maybe they're not, I'm not sure, but they're not accepting, they're not responding to candidates who are asking for informational interviews. And I have to encourage employers to get online and start talking, start having a presence on the social media. It can be your best friend as well, right? That's where that's where people are hanging out, especially on LinkedIn. And they're looking to just have 5 to 15 minutes of your time to ask about your organization, ask about the culture. Just they want to network, they want to get out there. And so I'm going to use this as a plug for the employers to accept those and to have those conversations and to get to know people. Because you know, as an employer, increasing your network as well is going to help get those candidates through the door. Just as I tell candidates to increase their network, to get more employers knowing who they are, and both from a skill perspective and a behavioral perspective. So again, it's using social media to your full extent as well. And that means putting in some time.
Thank you, Catherine.
Right. I'm going to have to agree with everybody so far. We recommend that all employers start with a review of their culture. Times have really changed, and what's happening in your company is a really important thing. Culture starts from the top of an organization, and therefore it's set by leadership. Leaders need to walk the talk. I've worked personally in places years ago where the core values were on the wall, but they were not followed by leadership. They actually were my personal core values, but leadership didn't emulate those core values. People are always looking for respect, some flexibility and understanding from leadership, and the world of work has changed a lot. Employers won't be as successful if they continue with culture from a long time ago. It just doesn't work anymore. Current culture needs to embrace positivity, diversity, and inclusion, and culture must be welcoming and celebrate successes. I highly recommend a book called Why People Can't, actually, I got it out today. Why People, you can't see it. No, there we go. No, Why People Can't Get Jobs. It's a short read. It's about 100 pages. It talks about skills gaps and what companies can do about it. It's by Peter Capelli. It's actually called The Skills Gap and What Companies Can Do About It. Highly recommend it. Employers can question their current state and evaluate their business philosophy. Can newcomers play a role in your business and assist you in achieving those goals? People need to start by educating themselves and reach out to local resources such as WILL Immploy and learn more about hiring immigrants. Connect with other businesses who've successfully hired newcomers and learn about their experience. And just as a quick note, we've got a client in Windsor who only hires immigrants for leadership roles, and they are a Canadian-based company. The individuals who own the company were born in Windsor, and they only hire. When they contact us, they're like, okay, we only want immigrants, Catherine. Remember that? Oh, yes, we know that. That's what we're going to try to work with you to achieve. We just want to spread that message as best we can.
Great, thank you. So we're going to get into some of the questions that were submitted at the registration. And again, I do invite anyone listening to add additional questions to the Q&A, and feel free to get some expertise from these lovely people we have sharing with us. So the first question is going to go to you, Catherine, and it says, what strategies, so specifically strategies, can businesses implement to overcome their challenges when hiring, retaining immigrant talent?
So market your company or nonprofit and that it values diversity, equity, and inclusion. Put that in your marketing somehow so that it can be seen. Incorporate culturally sensitive screening practices, right? Recognizing interview biases, being open to transferable skills, framing interview questions more generically so that they can be easily interpreted. And in the HR world, we know that some questions are culturally unfair. So we would help an employer to make those questions more culturally fair. I can't explain that in a 2-minute, but we know that some questions are just not culturally as fair. Develop a rapport with community services and programs who work directly with immigrants and ensure they're aware of our or your available positions. Have programs in place upon hire to support workplace integration and socialization. Use mentorship and buddy programs. Cultural diversity training for all levels of employees, including leadership. Honor holidays and celebrations. Stay connected with external resources and partners who can readily support new hires. and facilitate and encourage language development and communication skills. So I found a great resource, which is amssa.org. I can send it out later. And it's about immigrant-friendly businesses' effective practices for attracting, integrating, and retaining immigrants in Canadian workplaces. When discussing recruiting with a client, we remind them that immigrants are extremely hardworking and dedicated and just want to be given an opportunity. We proactively discuss what the client may think will be the challenges, and then we brainstorm how to get past those challenges, right? And we promote language training that includes perhaps an English word of the day, a mentorship program, lunch buddy system, one-on-one tutoring, enrollment in English as a second language, and time off for courses as needed. Business skills development in newcomers, company socials, potlucks where people can mingle. And of course, we all know that food that wasn't made in Canada is often the best, right, Patricia? Patricia hosted a wonderful cookbook, which is on my shelf, about food. Yeah. Anyway, I won't go on and on about that, but we all know those potlucks where people who aren't Canadian are cooking often have the best food. Anyway, assistance with housing, transportation, getting bus passes, banking, and school registration are just some of the ideas we have.
Great, thank you so much. The next question is for Jen. Jen, the question is, what strategies can employers in healthcare adopt to hire and retain immigrant talent? So I know you've mentioned a few, but if there's some that you'd like to highlight now.
Okay, so finding candidates who want to come to Ontario or Canada is not my problem. It's getting those people who are interested actually being able to work here. So immigration and licensing is by far my biggest challenge with physician recruitment, which is so unfortunate. But yeah, so I'd like to recommend finding an immigration expert and latch on to them tightly. You know, we're recruiters, we're not immigration lawyers, so it's hard to know it all. For example, I recently found an immigration expert at Ontario Health, which obviously won't help everyone here, but anybody in healthcare. And she's absolutely fabulous and so helpful. And she's the subject matter expert when it comes to immigration. And I don't have to know anything really about it. I can go to her and she can just walk me through getting these folks here. So I would find someone who's an expert in immigration and just hold on to them tightly. Also, for me, advocating for making the pathway to Canada easier. So whether that's completing the IRCC surveys, making suggestions to your LIP. I'm on an advocacy committee, which you mentioned, for physician recruitment to help ease immigration policies. You could host a webinar for answering foreign candidates' questions about coming to Canada or Ontario or your city, wherever you are. You know, once you reach those candidates, you can have just a really casual webinar where they can just ask you whatever silly question they have, because there's many times that they just don't know what it's like here. So that kind of breaks down some barriers as well.
Absolutely. We have a few questions in the Q&A. I'll just pop in before we get to the next question, but Elena, who is at the Windsor LIP, is asking if you could share that company that is hiring, is looking or interested in only hiring newcomers. So I don't know if you want to do that offline or do it now. And then we also have a question from the RIF. So from Rosa, we have, hi, Catherine, could you share an example of a culturally unfair question? I don't know if you just have one example. And make sure you unmute yourself before you respond. You're muted, Catherine.
Yeah, sorry about that. I keep myself muted. Yes, have you completed grade 12? Right? Some countries don't have grade 12. Or if you haven't completed grade 12, have you completed a GED? Which again, some countries don't have that. That's just a really simple one. Some of them would be much more complicated, but that's just a very simple one that a lot of places use as a screening question, right? And you can get screened out where you may have a degree, but you haven't completed grade 12.
Yeah.
Just a
I
sample.
think also, if you're in an in-person interview, if you get a question or a response to a question that you didn't expect in any way, maybe go back and ask that question in a different way and consider what it is you want.
Mhm.
So sometimes getting a weird answer might be indication that there's a miscommunication happening. Daniela, I know it says that you wanted to answer. Did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, no, just letting everyone see the question live.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. I understand what it looks like now. And then the next one we have, who in the system makes the employer accountable to ensure diversity and inclusion in their company? Is there, yeah, from like the system's view, I don't think there's technically anyone. I don't know if anyone from WILL Immploy knows how to respond to that one. Who ensures accountability? I think technically it's a human rights code issue that kind of comes down, but it's not necessarily a process, from what I understand, to be able to make a complaint and make something go public. So great. Okay, we'll get on to the next question, which is for Trish. Can you give some tips on successful onboarding and employee retention? I know you touched on it a little bit, but some specific tips would be helpful for everyone.
Sure, love to. Thank you. So again, immediately engaging your candidate right away, even during the recruitment process, giving them a good feel about the organization, making them feel welcome, making them feel like they're important, making sure their tools and equipment are ready to go on day one. That's a huge thing. You know, I think everyone's had an experience where, you know, you start a job in the first week or so, you're just kind of wandering around and not knowing, you know, who you're supposed to be talking to, or maybe you don't even have the computer or the, you know, you're not set up to go yet. And it can be a little daunting. It can be a little, maybe they don't really care about me. I'm not sure. But having that, you know, right away, having a scheduled training so that they, you know, on the first day to sit down with them and say, okay, let's go through what you can expect. What are the expectations are really important too, right? So during the probationary period, knowing, you know, what is the employer looking for, and then checking in often to see how they're doing. They may not have understood the instructions. Maybe there's some clarity or lack of clarity that they're looking for, and just touching base with them on a frequent basis can kind of keep them on track. It also keeps them engaged, right? Having that conversation. How you doing? Do you have any questions? Are there any barriers? What are your challenges? Without them feeling like they're being performance managed, right? It's just that constant touch base is so important. And then I go back to the buddy system, where if you have and it's separate to the trainer, you have your trainer, you have your HR that's doing the onboarding for payroll and all that fun stuff, but then having that buddy who is, you know, your coworker and who's there to look out for you. So your trainer does the training, they leave, you know, they walk away and they leave you. And if you have any questions from that, then you can ask your buddy without feeling like you're bothering your trainer again, right? Like, you know, there's questions, you can't remember everything. And so it's nice to bounce things off the person that you're working beside. And again, they're integrating you culturally into the employee group and feeling a part of that. So that's a huge thing for retention. The other thing I see quite often, unfortunately, but I think it's a reality, is that the small employers, in terms of not knowing, you don't know what you don't know. And so from an ESA compliance perspective, I can't say enough, having these different policies in place, violence and harassment in the workplace, having the training on that. I use that as an example because I've seen a handful of individuals who they start with the organization, they may come across something and they don't know who to talk to, and they don't know what their rights are, and they don't know what protection is there for them. And so they end up leaving the organization and going looking for another job because they just, you know, it may be a misunderstanding, or it may be somebody is harassing them and they don't know what to do about it. So again, having these policies and programs in place and clearly articulating what their rights are as an employee is really important as well.
Thank you so much. And I think I'd like to add my own thoughts too, but I think as much as employers should be saying, telling an employee what their expectation is, maybe with new hires also checking in after a week and saying, have we met your expectations? Was this job what you thought? And it's a nice way to not make sure your employees feeling heard and is like aligned with what they're doing. Our next question again is for Trish, and it's what is the number one tip for ensuring diversity in the recruitment process?
Okay, I had to really think about that. So the number one tip is just allowing flexibility in the recruitment process. And so I've worked with employers who insisted that it was all, face-to-face interviewing. And after we've gone through this huge transition into virtual after, COVID, it's allowing that those initial conversations to take place virtually. It's very efficient because if there's not a good match, you can assess that right away, and that person is not taking the time to drive over, and you're not taking extra time to meet that person face to face. But it's having that flexibility. If it needs to be audio assisted, if it coming in where that candidate is very effective. So I think that's my number one tip, is just allowing flexibility within the recruitment process itself to match, to be where the candidate is, and go through the interview process before making any decisions, because there may be a barrier that they have that's easy for the employer to help them overcome. Thank you.
The next question is for both Jen and Catherine, and we'll start with Jen, but how do you organize training on the job for the positions that would allow it?
Okay, so when we recruit a new physician, I do not have to train them on the medicine. They come knowing the medicine, but what they don't know are all those other administrative functions of being a physician at our hospital. So they don't know how to get their CKHA email put on their cell phone. They don't know how to, they might not have ever used our EMR, for example, our electronic medical record, which is where they do all their charting and everything. Like, they might not have ever even seen that. So they understand the medicine, but they don't understand the administrative functions. So when I started this role a few years ago, I created sort of like a one-day orientation. It's their very first day, and all the key stakeholders are brought in from the organization. So they go through a department meeting, they do OC Health, they learn the EMR, they like everything that administratively they would need to know at CKHA, they get in that one day. So they're given the tools to succeed on day one. And at the same time, they're also meeting all of the different people who can help them settle in. So again, we don't have to train them on the medicine, they've got that, but if you don't know who to ask for a specialized piece of equipment or how to log into a computer, it doesn't matter if you know medicine if you can't get into the OR properly. If you need scrubs and no one shows you how to get scrubs, that's where things stop. So just having a really nicely organized day to get them everything they need to set them up for success is sort of my biggest tip.
Thanks, Catherine. Did you want to add anything, or we are in the last few minutes? So
I'll go quick, just to jump off what Jen said there, allowing for time for informal training. So I don't know where the scrubs are. Okay, well, let me show you how to do that. So if there's an allowance for informal training, online training, but also we suggest the ADDIE model, analyze what the employee needs to know to do the job successfully, design what the on-the-job training program looks like, develop methods, resources, and materials in the training program, implement it, decide who will do it, when and where it'll be done, and then evaluate. We are training specialists. I personally have been teaching at Fanshawe for 15 years. I taught training and development 2 years ago, and I'm teaching it again this fall. So HR companies are training specialists. So we can't just summarize a big question that easily.
Thank you. I do have one more question that's going to go to you, Catherine, and it says, considering the pipeline of recruit, retain, advance, what have you seen to be successful strategies to propel immigrant employees to leadership positions?
That's a great question, and I spent
recruit,
a lot of
retain,
time.
advance. So kind of going further a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I spent a lot of time thinking about this, because looking at it from a regular perhaps Canadian perspective, and then how do we give somebody a leg up? So I recommend ongoing training or familiarity with obviously the English language and Canadian culture and nuances, which can be gained sort of easily and organically by joining local community activities to promote continual learning and exposure, such as adult sports teams, your children's sports teams, and mingling with parents. Children's activities where parents mingle, picking up books from the library, such as leadership books. Even Patrick Lencioni has it. They're simple, but they're very good about Canadian leadership. I also recommend continuous learning if possible, but I know that's not always affordable. But you can get learning through picking up books at the library, going to business events, and taking classes.
Great, thank you.
Over to you,
I think we have time for one more. So I'm going to go down to this question. So what do you suggest to attract non-traditional talents for positions that no immigrants have applied to? So this question is going to go to Trish.
Yeah, so that it is an interesting question as well, and I think it's really about targeting your recruitment efforts and your postings. There's so many communities that you can post directly into, and so just knowing where that is. So, for example, one of the things that I have is a list of communities, First Nation communities, if I want to get a posting out to the Indigenous and First Nations, and just there's so many different communities that we can get our postings that are not. It's not the normal, Indeed and LinkedIn, although those are the two most popular, but, getting into, maybe the churches or community centers or, places where the individuals hang out really, and getting that up and out there. The employees, tapping into your employees and asking those questions it's a great resource. Asking your employees are a great resource. One of the things that I always recommend to an organization, again, depending on the size and whether you're capable of doing this or not, is having a DEI committee, but it's just a group of individuals from different backgrounds and different talents and experience to say, okay, what do you think? Where would be the best place to attract these individuals that we're looking for, and just really target your postings. Yeah, that was my recommendation.
Great. Thank you so much. And we are coming to the end of our time. So I think we will close it off now. I wanted to thank everyone first for joining us today. I did want to highlight that there were a few resources that were mentioned. Catherine mentioned checking out AMSA. They're an incredible group out of BC, and there's definitely a lot of resources to get on there. You also mentioned the book. I think it was called The Skills Gap and What Employers Can Do About It. Also your Perth resource that you've created. So there are a lot of really great resources available. It's really also important to connect with some of the partners that put this together. So WILL Immploy currently is running a employee retention and recruitment project, which if you're not connected to, then it's definitely worthwhile to connect and get some more of your questions or thoughts answered there. Also, if you are in a region that has a local immigration partnership, they're also a really great first step that won't necessarily be able to offer you any services, but can help you get directed to some of the resources that were mentioned. Again, so Catherine says the book was written by Peter Capelli to check out. So thank you everyone for considering this topic, for trying to gain some knowledge and experience as we work through our workforce challenges. So hopefully we'll see you in the next webinar. Thank you, everyone.